Now sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy. Much love to all.
A slave name is the personal name given by others to an enslaved person, or a name inherited from enslaved ancestors. The slave master who owned us put his last name on us to denote that we were his property. So when you see a Negro today who's named Johnson, if you go back in his history you will find that his grandfather, or one of his forefathers, was owned by a white man who was named Johnson. My father didn't know his last name. My father got his last name from his grandfather, and his grandfather got it from his grandfather, who got it from the slave master. The real names of our people were destroyed during slavery. Malcolm X. Ancient Rome. In Rome, slaves were given a single name by their owner. A slave who was freed might keep his or her slave name and adopt the former owner's name as a pronomen and nomen. As an example, one historian says that a man named Publius Larcius freed a male slave named Nisha, who was then called Publius Larcius Nisha. Historian Harold Whetstone Johnston writes of instances in which a slave's former owner chose to ignore custom and simply chose a name for the freedman. African Americans. A number of Afro-Americans and Afro-Caribbeans have changed their names out of the belief that the names they were given at birth were slave names. An individual's name change often coincides with a religious conversion. Muhammad Ali changed his name from Cassius Clay, Malcolm X from Malcolm Little. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from Ferdinand Louis Alcindor Jr., and Louis Farrakhan changed his from Louis Eugene Walcott, for example, for involvement with the Black nationalist movement. In this later case usually adopting names of African origin, e.g., Amiri Baraka and Assata Shakur. Some organizations encourage African Americans to abandon their slave names. The Nation of Islam is perhaps the best known of them. In his 1965 book, Message to the Black Man in America, Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad often writes of slave names. Some of his comments include, "You must remember that slave names will keep you a slave in the eyes of the civilized world today. You have seen, and recently, that Africa and Asia will not honor you or give you any respect as long as you are called by the white man's name. You are still called by your slave master's names. By rights, by international rights, you belong to the white man of America. He knows that. You have never gotten out of the shackles of slavery. You are still in them." The Black nationalist U.S. organization also advocates for African Americans to change their slave names and adopt African names. Men with 2 or 3 names could be officially awarded an additional cognomen, an honorific, which they bore for life, but did not pass down to their descendants, e.g. Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, the great Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus, conqueror of Africa. Both these cognomina were awarded by senatorial decree. Sometimes this additional cognomen was a nickname that stuck, e.g., Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix, the Lucky. This type of cognomen is sometimes called an ignomen. Adoption. An adult son of a family which already had a male heir could be adopted into a family which did not have a surviving son. The adopted man took all 3 names of his adoptive father and usually added the adjectival form of his own clan name, formed by adding the suffix -anus to his own nomen.
Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Till the next time, much love.